These are the Kentucky Fried Movie DVD extras, which makes us, are we extras?
No, that's a good
Anyway.
pun, though.
Thank you.
Unpaid extras.
Extras also means
See, in the movie
Yeah, in the
business.
movie
Okay,
business.
sorry.
well, we call them background, though.
Background, that's right, they're
Yeah.
called background now, not
Background
extras.
artists.
Extras is a
Back-
little real rude, isn't it?
Yeah, who was
Extras?
the guy, John, who was my AD on All the Naked Gun?
Kretschmer?
Kretschmer always used to say background artist. He was like the
Background
ultimate
artist.
polite. He was the most
It's like-
polite and wonderful
Yeah,
assistant director.
performance artist.
Yeah, well, that was yeah. It was 1971, and I was just out of college. Jerry was doing his practice teaching because he was an education major. And Jim Abrams, our friend, was a private investigator for a law firm in Milwaukee. And Jerry was in Madison at the University of Wisconsin. So I managed to get a hold of some videotape, which my dad borrowed from a friend of his. And so we just thought we could make spoofs of TV commercials and maybe put them in, combine them with a live show, because Jerry also knew our friend Dick Chudnow, who was another TA at Madison, and they had a performance group which was improvisations. And so we combined that with our TV commercials, and we just made a stage show.
I thought my razor was dull until I heard that last answer.
Should we start
Old
over?
Groucho remarks. No. It's fine. Yes, that was excellent.
You would
That
agree
was-
with that? I mean,
that was all correct.
Yeah.
Everything in there was correct. Very monotone, but just right on.
I'll try to
Perfect.
vary
Yeah.
the pitch
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
bit, but I just
David, I should
just
say,
got off
wait a
the
second, I
plane,
should say
yeah.
David just got off the plane. We're in London now, and David just got off the plane from America.
So this
And
is not my
he's a
usual
little-
self, yeah.
His suitcase is actually just back
Yeah,
there.
you can
out of
see it in the
sight. Yeah,
background.
it's probably in the back of the
Yeah.
shot anyway. So, okay, just to set the stage. Well, I think at some point we decided we didn't want to be a performing group, and we had done some television, but it just didn't seem to be our thing either. So we thought, wait a minute, maybe movies would be good. And then Ken Shapiro had done Groove Tube, the film, which was a bit film, and I think there was no, I guess that was it. There was just that one, and we thought, gee, we have this whole show with all these different bits, and it's be fun to write new stuff and try to make a movie, and maybe we could actually get that made because we could do it cheaper. So I think that was kind of the genesis of it. And then we met John Landis, and because we didn't know anything about. David actually saw John Landis on The Tonight Show, and he was on The Tonight Show because he was a 21-year-old kid who had directed a movie,
Called
which was
Schlock.
And so he was on the show, and so David got his number from the distributor of the movie and called
Levitt Pickman.
Levitt Pickman and called John, and what did John's reaction was?
How'd you get this number? I said, well, they gave it to me. And he was like about to get on the phone to Levitt Pickman to scream at them. I said, no, I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to invite you to our show. We have this Kentucky Fried Theater show on Pico, so come over and see it. And he did.
And then we had took him out to lunch. The three of us, Jim and David and I, took him out to lunch and just asked him questions about how do you make a movie.
And he said, first you need a script. And we said, we know that, but what does one look like? And so he went out to his car and brought us back one of his scripts, which happened to be titled American Werewolf in London. And this was like years before he ever got that on film. But we took that and we used that as kind of a template, so we knew how to do it.
Not the structure
No,
of the movie, but just the format. Because we didn't even know,
slug
fade
lines
in,
and, yeah.
How dialogue was. I mean, we knew nothing. As a matter of fact, I think the reason David called him was because he thought, gee, the guy's 21, maybe he'll talk to us, because nobody else would. So and he was right. And John was really nice, and he was just very happy to, tell us what he knew, and kind of got us started. I don't think so. I don't think that actually, in a way, it sort of it seemed to make it easier because it was all, most of it could be done on locations and, could be done fairly simply and, it didn't really require, well, in those days, I guess they didn't have special effects, so forget
No,
that.
special effects hadn't been invented.
Hadn't been invented yet, but we knew they were coming, but anyway.
We did the whole movie really one big mansion on the grounds and in the mansion in Pasadena. And
What was it, the Dovey
The Dovey Dina Mansion it was called. And some of the sets were constructed outside, and we just, prayed that it wouldn't rain, and they didn't have any ceilings, so that the light, we just used natural light, just like they used to do in the silent movies.
Yeah, we also prayed that they'd be funny.
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Movie was just a really fun movie to shoot. I mean, every day there was something wild going on. Every day there was a great gag, or 2 or 3 or 12. And I think probably, I don't know, if you're trying to, it's hard to say what the most fun one was. A Fistful of Yen was I think really fun to shoot. But you know what? I will tell you what I think the most fun was for my personal, I think, would be the zinc oxide. Zinc oxide and you, that was great. That was really a treat to film. Yeah, it was great. Cleopatra Schwartz, of course, was. But then it doesn't make any sense if it's not an answer. So, okay, go ahead, you answer.
What Jerry meant,
jet lag.
What
it's
Jerry meant
jet
to
lag.
say was
Yes.
that he enjoyed the Cleopatra Schwartz commercial the most because it involved nudity. And
Yeah.
in fact, those are the days that when Jerry actually showed up on the set.
Yeah, I used to call in ahead of time and see if there was going to be any nudity.
Were there going to be any breasts today?
Yeah.
Oh yes, sure, Jerry, come on in.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to lie about it. We actually thought it would be funny.
I don't
if-
think we wrote any. I don't think we've ever written anything.
Just to meet girls.
No, that would have been worthwhile, but just for the box, because we thought this is what's popular at the box office. Other than the fact that we knew we were unbridled in terms of just it's a hard hour. We were going to go for it. We were, we didn't have to be restrained. But other than that, we only write what we think is funny, and fortunately, we're all just really immature. So it tends to be that kind of humor.
The spoof movie trailers that were in Kentucky Fried Movie, evidently we did invent that because we now that we think of it, we can't think of anybody who did them before we did. So we may well have.
Yeah, I had no idea. We were not aware at the time that we were inventing anything, but
sprocket holes.
Sprocket holes we invented. The movies, but prior to Kentucky Fried Movie, there were no sprocket holes, and that would make it really difficult.
They were done on a kind of
film.
these rubber rollers.
Yeah.
So who knew?
And David and Jim and I invented that. I think that I guess that this someone had just mentioned to us that they thought it was the first time there was a trailer had been spoofed, a preview of coming attractions had been spoofed. I actually wasn't aware of that, but if that's true, then we'll take credit for being the first.
And we never did it again after that.
Yeah, that's true. There had been a lot of spoof commercials. I mean, I think the first one that we saw that was kind of delighted us was Putney Swope. It had a spoof of a TV commercial that was really funny. But I'm sure. But look at television did spoofs of TV commercials all the time. I mean, I'm sure Milton Berle and all
they
those
probably did. That's
shows.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
so we
all
can't
did
even
that
claim
stuff.
that then.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, but
they
in a
never did it
film,
in a
but
movie,
it wasn't
yes.
in a movie. I don't know.
And background. We also did a lot of background humor, and that I remember seeing a movie called Harold and Maude, which had some wonderfully funny background gags when he would be trying to commit suicide, and burning himself in the background, while
Oh,
something
right,
else
right,
was
right,
going
in the
in the
foreground,
foreground.
yeah.
I think that impressed us a lot.
Yeah. He was a friend of John Landis. And-
Anybody who was famous was a friend of John Landis because we didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Landis had worked on a bunch of movies prior to that, and he got Bill Bixby in,
Yeah.
and who's the guy that was on Laugh-In? Henry Gibson.
Oh, Henry Gibson. Yeah, they were all friends of John's.
Yeah, and Goldie Hawn. I mean, there
She
was a
wasn't-
lot. All these. Oh,
She wasn't in it.
Oh, she
No,
wasn't in
no,
it.
no.
Oh,
Nobody knew her. You'd have to ask Donald. I think he.
I mean, I still don't get that gag.
Yeah.
I mean, it
That's
was
right.
just as used to have Donald Sutherland in, but other
Yeah.
than that, just to have him fall into a cake without any reason
Yeah.
wasn't really that funny. But we were really impressed with ourselves that we had Donald
got to
Sutherland.
meet Donald
we
Sutherland.
got to meet Donald Sutherland, yeah. And then we resolved to, whenever we had a big celebrity cameo in the future, we were going to make it funny.
My favorite subsequent to that is Ethel Merman in
Yeah.
Airplane. That's my favorite cameo in any of our
Yeah.
films.
Was she game?
She was Ethel Merman was totally game, and she was wonderful. She's sweet, really sweet, nice woman, and I think her only stipulation was, because I don't think we paid her very much, but she wanted to bring her hair person.
Which we
'cause
agreed
she
to
had-
pay for.
Yeah, to fly her hair person out and to do her hair. And I mean, you can look at her hair in the movie. It's that famous kind of beehive or whatever that
Yeah.
was, that hairdo that she had. But that was her, and she loved it. But she was great. Ethel Merman it was just really a thrill to have her on the set. I mean, I think really, certainly up to that time, I was. Meeting her was one of the more exciting things in terms of hanging with famous actors.
Jerry had led an exceptionally dull life up
Yeah.
to that point, so this
But
was
Ethel
a
Merman-
thrill. Ethel Merman.
Not the
Well-
actresses from Catholic Schoolgirls in Trouble, Ethel Merman.
Yeah, no, I'd take Ethel over all of them. She was great.
Well, a lot of it. I mean, we used to play football and baseball, and Jerry would be in watching, those musicals.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of lived with Mom for about
Judy.
the first 40 years of your
Yeah,
life.
yeah. A lot of Judy
Yeah,
Garland.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
We would always screen films in front of an audience. You can't put a comedy out, I don't think, without pre-screening and to see what works, and a number of screenings. And we've done that with all our movies. Now, do you remember, I know we did a lot of editing on Kentucky Fried Movie. Do you remember what things particularly were?
I don't remember particular things, but I do remember that the first screening of Kentucky Fried Movie, like every comedy we've ever done, it was a disaster the first time we played it. Not quite the disaster that Airplane was when that first screening, but I remember I invited friends. We screened it up in we tested it in San
right?
Francisco, and I invited, at that time I had friends, and some of
I
them
remember
lived in
those days, yeah.
San Francisco, and I don't know, like 5 or 6 friends, and I invited them. I would never do that today. Of course, today I'm not doing movies either, but
It's a dangerous. The first screening is
the first
always
screening is
dangerous.
always-
We just
yeah.
pray.
Because there's 20 minutes in there that's not going to be funny. So, and comedy really, survives on that pace. Like everything's going to be funny, and so every movie, at least 20 minutes is going to be cut out. So if you can imagine just sitting there for 20 minutes and nothing's funny, it's pretty deadly. And it's spaced throughout the movie.
No, there were some things that came out completely, but I just don't
I don't
remember.
think that in those we needed so much. We needed everything, so we kept everything in.
You don't think there was not one thing that we filmed?
Not
that,
one thing that
Really?
came out. Maybe there was a fixative where the
Oh, right,
where the
right,
thing
yeah.
caught fire.
Yeah, that
Well, I
came
don't know
out.
why that wasn't funny though.
The fixative sketch was a mock on this on an ad that was playing a lot for one of these, call-in products that you'd order, not
Yeah,
something
order by phone.
order by phone things, and it was just this, I don't know.
It was
Paste
a
or
coat.
powder or something.
Yeah, but
well,
it
no,
was
the
they showed a coat.
product
Yeah,
was a
right.
powder
Oh,
that you'd
yes.
put on.
Yeah.
If there was a hole in fabric, you'd put this on, and somehow it would patch it. I don't even remember
Yeah.
what it was
Right.
actually supposed to do, but it showed this coat, and so in the real ad, and they'd put the thing on, and the guy said, "Fixative, fixes anything and instantly," and it was droning on. And what was we
No,
did?
it was. I remember
What?
the ad
Yeah.
said, "We're burning a hole in this coat to
Oh, that's
show you."
right.
And so they had a cigarette, and they would burn a hole in a coat on the camera, and then they would show, it burned a hole in it, and then they put the fixative fabric adhesive, and they showed it just knit together and sewn up, and you couldn't even see. What we did was we kept that announcer going, and we burned the hole in the coat, and then it burst into flames. It kept burning. And I think,
And then the whole coat in there,
yeah, the
throwing
whole
on
coat.
fixative
Throwing up more
and
fixative.
water and all
It
that
was
kind of
funny.
stuff. Yeah, it was funny. I don't know what.
Yeah.
That was one of those rare cases where we were right and the audience was wrong.
It could have been
Hundreds of people were just wrong.
Oh, yeah. And we would.
It happens.
Yeah, we wanted to release the movie and then with an explanation of why,
Why it's
some
funny.
of these bits were funny, and maybe it burst into flames too fast. It was probably the special effects, and we couldn't afford to do take two. Maybe we did, but each time I think the coat burned and burst into flames.
Anyway,
Yeah.
in general, we like to spoof anything that took itself seriously. That would certainly be the best. Those would be the best vehicles for us. And disaster movies at that time were very in vogue. The Towering Inferno and
invariably they turned out to be B movies.
Yeah.
Even today, I just saw about a half hour of 2012. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's exactly that kind of stuff that we would spoof.
Oh, 2012. Yes,
Yeah,
right,
2012,
right.
Independence Day,
And-
those
right,
kind of
right,
things.
right, yeah.
Invariably, there's something about these disaster movies where they have a big cast, and you have to get into everybody's personal life, and the stuff is just the dialogue is unintentionally funny. Well, it was actually we wrote Airplane before we wrote Kentucky Fried Movie, and we couldn't get it. We couldn't get backing to do Airplane, so. When Landis came to see our show and suggested, why don't you guys do a movie of your show, then we did that because, we were trying to get into the movie business. When our movies were hits, I have to say, nothing surprised us until Top Secret. And the reason, we were really, we spent months and months and years trying to convince people to finance these movies, whether it was Kentucky Fried Movie or Airplane or Top Secret or whatever it was. But and because we kept saying this is going to be a big hit, this is comedy gold or whatever we were saying. But we really did believe it. We thought the movies were funny and they would be a big hit. Well, very difficult because. It is kind of an axiom in Hollywood that they'll only let you do what you've already proven that you can do. So, at the time we did Kentucky Fried Movie, we had proven that we could run a very successful small theater in a live show in LA. So we wanted to take the next step. We wanted to write and produce a feature film. So when we did that, then with Airplane, we were insisting on directing it, and not only being first-time directors, but we were insisting that all three of us direct at the same time. So You know, we hadn't even gone
I
near
think the
proving we
biggest,
could do that.
I think the biggest question really was, I mean, there were 100, questions that people had about an airplane, but I think that one of the biggest was, does satire work on film? Because there had been evidence to make people think that it didn't. There was a movie called The Big Bus, which was supposed to be, which was satire, but it just wasn't, we were doing a completely different kind of satire than that, and to convince people that this was different, and nobody really understood the way we wanted to cast it. I mean, we would explain it, but it's an easy thing to realize when you see it, but to explain it to someone beforehand was actually turned out to be pretty difficult. And actually, even at Paramount, who finally was, every studio in Hollywood turned it down, and finally Paramount said, okay, we'll make this. And the first day of dailies, when Leslie Nielsen says, I am serious and don't call me Shirley, that was in the first day's rushes, we got a call from the studio, saying, okay, now we get it.
We got a lot of blank looks before that as we cast one by one actors like Robert Stack, Peter Graves, Lloyd Bridges, and Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
And I remember the Leslie Nielsen was the last straw for our casting director. He said, Leslie Nielsen's the guy you cast the night before. And we were just so thrilled to have Leslie, and it was like a month before. Yeah. But this had never been done before. But as Jerry said, the first day of dailies, they got it.
When we cast Leslie Nielsen, nobody got it. What, Leslie Nielsen in a comedy? And we actually, when we talked with Leslie, when we first met him, we said, we just want you to play it straight, like you do all the other roles you played, and it's going to work great. What we didn't realize was that Leslie was a closet comedian, but which anybody who knew him knew, because he was a prankster and he was always making jokes. And I think Leslie kind of shared our sense of anarchy, of wanting to pull the clothes off the emperor or whatever, or announce that the emperor didn't have clothes.
That's right.
Or,
you kind of,
or shop at the Emporium or something. Anyway, so and so Leslie was really, more than anyone else, I think, was kind of one of us, and that was a surprise. It's great to write for someone, so we knew we could just imagine Leslie doing it, and we knew certain things that he was great at, and
certain things we knew that wouldn't be funny with any other actor, but Leslie Nielsen doing it, then this would be funny. Leslie could get away with things that very few actors could get away with. Leslie was never trying to be funny. He was always so. You never really expect it. So because his job isn't, quote, comedian, unquote, it always has that aura of the unexpected when Leslie does something. So he can get away with lines like "nice beaver" that for a comedian it would be a smart aleck remark. Yeah. But for Leslie, it just played right in with that. We're not trying to be funny.
We would frequently go into a screening with a 2-hour movie, into a first preview, a 2-hour movie, and we would think it all would be funny, but we knew that we'd be lucky if 90 minutes of it was funny, because that's just always what happens. I think it is pretty. Look at movies have done it. There have been 2-hour comedies. I think for our kind of comedies, those satires, where you really, it's really not about the plot. and it's more of a joke book, that it's hard to keep people laughing for more than an hour and a half.
And with this kind of comedy, it's hard to take a plot too seriously. But if you don't get the plot up to at least a modicum of respect, then you don't have a movie. So they always seem to work out to 85 minutes or 83 minutes. And but in some of the
Well, I'm including credits.
we do
Yeah.
everything we can. Yeah, you do.
Aren't
It's
they?
like
Don't
6
they
minutes of
stretch to
credits, just
90 with
stretch.
credits?
No,
Really?
no, not
Golly.
you eke out 80, 85, 86 minutes, or even 82 minutes with the credits, because it's just the comedies depend on the pace. Our comedy influences surprisingly weren't really other comedies, but it was, I would say, first off, I mean, we were so affected by serious movies, and so we would watch a lot of serious B movies and think that those were somehow funnier than the comedies of the day. But in the 1960s and 70s, I think we were all fans of Woody Allen and Mel Brooks. Also in college, the Marx Brothers.
Mad Magazine,
Mad
I would
Magazine.
say, was a huge influence when we were kids. That was probably the first comedy influence, because that was a satire magazine, and they did scenes we'd like to see.
It was a textbook of satire.
Yeah, and they had little things in the margins. They would
Background
and so that was, and we loved that. We loved Mad Magazine, and I think that was probably our first real influence. And we loved the Marx Brothers, but that was a little bit later. That was when we were in college. When we first ran our show in Madison, Wisconsin, Kentucky Fried Theater, we got a notice from the phone company that Kentucky Fried Chicken had written them and said they're sorry, they cannot allow this comedy group, Kentucky Fried Theater, to be using their name, and they wanted them to discontinue the phone line. And the phone company sent back a notice to both the Kentucky Fried Chicken and us, saying until there was some sort of legal direction, they would continue to list both of us. And that was the last I think we ever heard of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, once they were comfortable with the fact that we weren't selling chicken,
yeah, right.
It was okay.
Right,
but,
yeah.
But then in our live theater on Pico Boulevard in LA, we were only a block west of us was an actual Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant. And so I think somebody who worked there once told us that they had actually, some people would call and it would be confusing because the name of our show at our Kentucky Fried Theater was Vegetables. And so somebody called the Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant saying, "Do you have vegetables?" And so whoever the clerk was that answered the phone said, "No, but we have coleslaw." So it was a comedy of errors. It's like life imitating art a little bit.
We've talked from time to time about doing a sequel to Kentucky Fried movie, and actually we own the rights to it now because they've gone back to us. But
we're waiting to be contacted by investors.
Yeah,
so
that's right. So if
out,
anybody
right,
sees
yes,
this,
yeah.
no, we've talked about it. It's just a matter of because we're all doing different stuff and busy, whether we want to really take the time and do it. And maybe we will. I don't know.
We were when we wrote the script, we'd all meet at 9 a.m. At that time, it was above our theater. We had living spaces, and our office essentially was there. And so, we would write the script from just from 9 to 5.
Yeah, we really had a ritual. We'd get up in the morning, we'd drink coffee, And
Talk about
we'd
politics for an
talk
hour.
talk about politics until the coffee, until we were all like, till our motors were running, and then we'd start, wherever we happened to be, whether we were in the middle of some scene and okay, how are we going to do this, or whether we were just, we'd always start just throwing jokes up. And sometimes we'd look at old movies or TV commercials, or to get ideas for spoof. But we'd really write a sort of a pretty normal working day, and then at the end of the day, we'd kind of say, all right, we're all out of gas, and see you tomorrow.
Well, it was helpful to be in a group because you could always tell. I mean, if somebody thought of an idea, you would get an instant reaction. Either it was funny or it wasn't. And if the initial idea wasn't that funny, somebody else would add it and change it.
A lot of it, a lot of the bits were in all our movies were built as opposed to one person saying, wait a minute, I got an idea, this is how we should do it. One person would say, wait a minute, maybe we should do something about this, and then somebody, how about this, and so no, but this, and then add something to it, and then that's, so it was a real collaborative effort. But I think after a while, or really pretty close from the beginning, we had the kind of respect for each other that if one of us proposed a joke and the other two didn't laugh, we'd just go on. We'd say, oh, I guess it's not funny, because we had that kind. Unless there was something that you'd think maybe the other two didn't understand what you were talking about or something. But if they got what you meant and they didn't laugh, then that was. You just accepted that as the final arbiter of whether it was any good.
And also, we attached very little value or no value to whoever thought up what joke, and what would happen, because we just didn't have any individual pride of authorship, so that
we never told
there was no ego about it.
We had an understanding, which kind of evolved naturally, that we just didn't talk about who wrote what jokes. And it served us well, and a lot of times it was just kind of almost forgotten.
And we really have. We just can't. I mean, there's all the classic lines from Airplane or The Naked Guns. I don't think we remember who thought of what.
And as a result, it was all about the final product and what was funny, and not about how many jokes I have in, or David, or Jim's. And by the way, I should say that the other side of the thing of proposing a joke and not getting a laugh was if you say something and the other two laugh, that's great. It is funny. So it was really a fantastic collaboration. I mean, not that we didn't have our disagreements and our battles, but it was, we underneath it all was a real love and trust, and it was, we never went against the family. I thought that.
Geez,
Fistful of Yen. I'll never forget. David, Jim, and I, we all went to see, maybe even with Bob Weiss, I can't remember.
Enter the Dragon.
We saw the Bruce Lee film, Enter the Dragon, and we loved it. And we came out just, karate chopping everything in sight.
Yeah.
Pretty clumsily, of course, but we thought it was great. And which actually it's probably worth mentioning that to do the kind of spoofs that we do, the kind of satire, we really need to have a little bit of affection for what we're satirizing. I mean, if it's in a whole, movie like Airplane, or a 20-minute segment or half an hour like Fistful of Yen.
But we really liked those Airplane movies. Airport 75 and Airport.
We loved those, but we also saw the silly, we could also make fun of them. So that was perfect. If we found something really hateful, I don't think we would have.
We couldn't do it.
Wouldn't have had an interest in doing it.
And we loved the Dirty Harry movies. We thought they were good movies, yet there was so much to make fun of also.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I don't remember the moment where someone said, "Hey, let's do, you know, Enter the Dragon. Let's do a spoof of that
Well, that was me.
film." but you know, that just seemed like how much like tremendous fun and plenty of meat there, and you know, so I think we dove in and never looked back. I would say that was a high point. It was I loved the idea that David put that into Naked Gun 2, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember when I saw Ghost, and you know, aside from the fact that I loved it, you know, and tears coming. I mean, everybody cries at the end of that thing. And then but I called up Jerry. I was just so excited, and I don't know if you thought I was excited about the movie. I said, "That pottery scene, we can spoof this."
Exactly.
That's
David's. Yeah. It's like, hey,
that was
more
material.
material.
Yeah. The movie was good. Yeah. But we can spoof this great pottery scene.
But also the tagline was wonderful, and if you look at that, you know, it was a trailer. Actually, it was a teaser trailer first, and then put into the movie, right?
Yeah, the teaser trailer. We did a couple of teaser trailers for the Naked Guns, and the greatest thing is being in the theater when these trailers played. And so you hear the you know, Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers, and a tight shot of the hands on the pottery wheel, and I would watch as every guy in the audience is going, all right, it's another chick movie or something. And then the shot widens out, and it's Leslie and Priscilla, and then everybody's just laughing.
But also I love the tagline was from the brother of the director of Ghost.
That's right.
So it's like, how often do you get a chance to do something like that? You know, it's like that might be in the high point of both our careers.
It went down from shortly after that.
I did have that worry that perhaps just anything I did would just end up being people would laugh at, even if I was intending it seriously. And in fact, the first screening, which actually went really well, but there's that scene where Patrick goes into Whoopi's body, you know, and dances. And so before, and so he's now as Whoopi, and you see, but it's still the two women sitting together, and the hand comes over, and you're not sure whether this is now going to be two women, together, and the audience was tittering.
It's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah. It's the audience was tittering, and I was like, oh no, my worst nightmare has come true. I've done this heavily dramatic scene, and people are, with this music, the Unchained Melody playing in the background.
And that's also where Jerry chose to put his directing credit, right there.
Right, exactly. And people are laughing, they're not exactly howling, but tittering, and it really almost like ruined the rest of the experience. And basically the scores were high, and the movie people were liked the movie and stuff, but in the end I think I just said, okay, if the movie is a roller coaster, there's comedy and action and thrill, whatever, in it, and so I'm just going to go. I'll just consider this, making the audience uncomfortable, part of that ride. And in fact, I took out every ambient noise. I mean, I even took out, like air conditioning hum and traffic outside and anything. So it's totally silent to make it more uncomfortable. Just because I just thought, well, great, go for it. That's another emotion in a sort of in a way. And then I just, I relaxed with it a little bit. A stage musical, yes. It opens in London Previews open end of March in London, and Bruce Joel Rubin, who wrote the screenplay, wrote the a musical. Not the music. The music is Dave Stewart and Glenn Ballard wrote the music, and I think it's going to be, from what I've seen and heard, I think it's going to be fantastic.
It is a lot different, but I mean, and I think there are jokes to be had, but not to fill up an entire movie. I mean, our feeling is that, you know, we didn't really even have enough jokes to fill up, you know, the first Airplane movie, and then we didn't. And Paramount wanted us to do Airplane 2, and we just, you know, declined to do that. And so, but I think there are some great Airplane jokes. It's just not enough to do an entire movie. There could be a 10-minute Airplane sketch within a new Kentucky Fried Movie.
I mean, Kentucky Fried Movie, you can go anywhere and do anything. It's just wide open. You can satirize anything you want. With an Airplane movie, you're stuck on an airplane again, in a control tower and whatever. And I don't think either of us felt like we wanted to, either then or now. And it came up again. Someone at Paramount had suggested that you know, maybe this would be a good time to do another one, and I don't think none of us had any real interest in that.
Our experience has kind of shown that, I mean, there's a limited amount of genres that can really be sent up in a movie spoof. I mean, so far, I mean, we did okay with the airplane, the airport, you know, disaster movie genre, and then the cop genre, you know, the satire of Dirty Harry was very good, and then the Wayans, when they did the first Scary Movie, showed that, I mean, there's a huge, you know, well of material to be mined from horror movies. But
then those last two, oh my God! Oh,
wait a minute, but I did those, Jerry.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Yeah, those were great. The last two Scary movies.
They still hold the box
them.
office records. Yes.
Really? Yeah.
So if there's any investors out there who'd like to
finance
more movies that we could do.
Exactly.
But
please send. If everybody who watches this would send $1.
Well, then we could finance another movie. But
okay, sorry.
But you know, I mean, the Wayans, you know, also they did a movie called Dance Flick, which was a satire of, you know, dance movies, and I don't think people want to see that genre. I did a movie called High School High, and it's the dedicated teacher genre. Just those genres aren't as good, although my filmmaking was excellent. I mean, brilliant.
Yeah.
But
it's a lost gem.
Yeah, it's a lost gem. You can still get that on DVD.
No, they removed it.
Oh, it's just completely gone.
It's just gone. Yeah.
But you know, there aren't a bunch of genres that you can't really send up anything. I think it usually has to have a bad guy or a big disaster in it.
This has to be something that people are, you know, familiar with, and
and lend itself to
and
that
just
spoof.
kind of be fun, you know. I mean,
fun genre.
You know, the Chopsaki movies are just fun to watch.
Yeah.
So they're great to satirize, and so are the disaster movies. Even when they're bad, they're sort of fun to watch.
Yeah.
No, ever since I really just was internationally recognized as a much superior director to David, I don't think we've really, you know, that just kind of.
Yeah, and I just went on to do, you know, just huge box office hits, and it was, I mean, they didn't have the art to them that Ghost had. But I just, you know, I just went on to have a hugely successful career, and so there wasn't any competition. Yeah.
Oh. No, we always talk and help each other with our, you know, talk to each other about what we're doing, and we're very good at pretending that we're really happy with the other's success.
Yeah,
so that's kind of makes
like
it
when
go.
Jim did the Hot Shots movie.
Yeah.
Whenever we talked to him, we were really pretending that we were proud of him.
Pretending that we were proud of him.
Yeah.
And not jealous. Yeah.
And he never found out.
Yeah.
He
never found out that we were.
He showed that he could be a success without us.
That it was. So one day I wanted to tell him that it was so good that I actually threw up and
Yeah.
tried to kill myself, but I don't know. I just thought maybe I better not go there.
And I had convinced myself that he could never do anything without us, and then he went to do Hot Shots. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hot Shots were great. No, we were. Kidding.
Okay. We just You better be sure to include this in it.
The Hot Shots were
hilarious.
great movies, and
a great idea for a spoof too. I mean,
yes, there's another example
Yeah.
of a really you want to be there. It was just fun to, be on the battleship and in the planes and all that stuff. It was just beyond, above and beyond the Top Gun satire.
and stuff that sticks with you because he had one character in it called Dead Meat, and you knew that guy was going to die. And so every time I see a movie where a certain character is going to die, and I just think of that character in Hot Shots, Dead Meat. Yeah.
Dave and I were pretty close growing up, but we played. I mean, we have an older sister, and so we were the two younger boys, and we would always be inventing games all the time and pulling pranks and all that. And we fought, too, and stuff, and argued all the time. But we were kind of, we were kind of tied together. We did a lot of stuff together, except when David went off to college and I was still in high school, and he got bell-bottom pants, and I was like, I think I disowned him.
Yeah, he was shocked.
Yeah, I was
that.
shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked. It was 1967 and 66 or something like that, and I was a junior in high school, and he was a freshman in college. And I just
my
thought,
grades weren't that great, but I did make quite a fashion statement.
Yeah, bell
in
bottoms.
those days. Yeah. And then we made films. We made comedy movies when we were in college, and that's kind of what started our real professional collaboration. One was about Jerry taking LSD and then peeing all over the campus in Madison.
Sort of.
Yeah, but those were the. Those
it's a
were
rough
the,
description.
That was the
And we did a
was
satire on Midnight Cowboy.
And later we both got to work with Dustin Hoffman and John Voight.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. It was called. There was one of the class times was 12:05. That was just the way they scheduled it. There were every class at that time was 12:05 or 1:20 and whatever as it went on, and so the title was 12:05 Cowboy, and it was just some guy who started on the dish crew because we worked on the dish crew at a dormitory in Madison, it was sort of followed sort of vaguely the story. It was not a great work of art, but but the people on campus liked it.
I think people were definitely ready for Kentucky Fried Movie.
I think in a sense, everything paves the way for what comes afterwards. Certainly. It became acceptable to have that kind of language and nudity in the theater. Now, interestingly enough, it would be tougher now to do Kentucky Fried Movie because that's all allowed on cable television. You can do anything and say anything in a lot of and on the internet, and so but at the time, part of the appeal of that movie was naughty stuff that you couldn't see on television.
But I think that's what you still have to do in movies. I mean, we're in the movie business of getting people to leave their homes for something.
Yeah.
So if you can do funny and make people laugh out loud, and you always have to be kind of shocking, and you have to do something new that people haven't seen before. But there always is material like that. So.
Yeah. I think the cinema-going experience has remained relatively unchanged. I mean, the big difference is now there's so much competition because you can see it at home. There's so much content available at home. Used to be 3 networks, you know, and now there's hundreds of cable channels and the internet. But when you walk into a theater and you sit in a seat and you see images projected on the screen, it's really basically the same experience. I mean, what's on the screen has changed a lot in terms of what you can do and the you know, with special effects, CGI,
3D
and 3D and
a
everything.
big thing to add to the theater experience.
But I think basically it's still that thing of a group of people sitting together to watch a story.
And especially in comedy, it's so important to have that theater experience where you have people, you know, a shared experience, and you hear the laughs. I mean, Jim's kids, who are now in their, you know, mid-20s, saw Airplane for the first time, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago at a, you know, one of these anniversary screenings of Airplane, and they were just blown away by it. They had never seen it in front of an audience. And to see to sit in the audience and they're all laughing, and it's a completely different experience than they had watching it on video at home.
Yeah. There is no right number. When we screen a movie, we like to have at least 300 people, because I mean, when we're in the editing process, because that's kind of what we need to get a sense of what's working and what's not. But in terms of just enjoying a movie, I mean, if you have 20 people there who are good laughers and really enjoying it, you can it becomes a much better experience. But there's nothing like a big auditorium with hundreds of people. There's a lot of Kentucky Fried Movie that doesn't really hold up, I think.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of it that does, you know, and so I'm kind of like take the optimistic point of view that gee, it's great that so much of it does hold up. And
there's a run in Fistful of Yen, where he says he's getting a tour through the prison, and Evan asks, "Who are these?" And he says, "Just lost drunken men who don't know where they are and no longer care." And who are these? And then he says, "Well, these are lost drunken men who know where they are and care but don't drink." And so, you know, it's like, and we played with that thing, and we kept playing, and it was every time it's a laugh, and it's still funny today. And you know, I think we're really proud of stuff like that has lasted all these years. Some of the more topical stuff that. Something that includes specific references to specific commercials, maybe aren't, you know, can't be as effective today.
Right.
But most of it really holds up, and of course, you know, naked breasts always hold up.
Always hold up.
So to speak.
In film.
Yes, right. In film. Yes,
in
right.
film, they always do. They're just preserved forever. Yeah. It was $700,000. It was the budget of Kentucky Fried Movie, and that was, you know, in 1977. So wait a sec, 76, 77, 76. It was out in
came out in 77 or 77. So
so we shot it in
it came out August in 77.
Anyway.
So.
Okay, so anyway, but so the well, you know, the budget was $700,000 in 1976 or 7, and which was low even then. But I think we got a lot out of it because there were no big, highly paid actors, and we really put every dollar on screen. Obviously, we weren't paid very much, so. It's a long story about how we got the financing, but essentially we made, David and Jim and I decided to invest $30,000, which is about all we had, and made 10 minutes of the movie that John directed, and there were 4 bits, and we showed those to everybody, and because nobody would just finance it just on the script, and the studios all turned it down, but a friend of ours, Kim Jorgensen, who is the executive producer of Kentucky Fried Movie, loved it and took it to friends of his that ran United Artists Theater Circuit. So that's the people that own the theaters, not the movie company. And they played it in one of their theaters, and people laughed. And they figured, I think, that worst came to worst, they could make money back by playing it in their own theaters, and so they financed it. That was the hardest movie to make a poster out of. I mean, there were so many different.
But I think both of them were
designs,
pretty good.
but they weren't bad. Yeah, in the end, it took a while getting there.
Yeah.
But there were so many bad ones on the way.
Yeah. United Artists Theater Circuit marketing department, or if they had a marketing department, or
no, they
farmed it out.
No, they didn't have any kind of, because they didn't make movies really. This was one of a handful that they made during that time, and they went to an ad company and to design a one sheet, and this is what they came up with. But I mean, I think they probably went to a number of different companies, and I just remember there were a lot of bad ones that at the beginning, and then they came up with these, which everybody said, hey, wait a minute, this is pretty fun.
Was the title the first one to have movie at the end of the title?
I don't know.
We could have maybe have another.
No. Dennis Hopper made the last movie.
Oh, okay. The last movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually wasn't really aware that Kentucky Fried Movie had that long
second life.
Had a second life
or
for great
they were
longevity.
DVDs.
Yeah, I don't. They never sent us one.
Yeah,
no. It's different with Airplane. Really has, I think, held up, and that was. I don't think we would have ever expected that. 30 years from now, it would still be so popular. Kentucky Fried Movie is still a cult movie, and it's impossible to judge. I think for us to judge to what extent or how popular, because I do hear people talk about it, but there's no measure for me. I have no idea what the DVD sales are, or how people are responding to it, other than anecdotally.
We were thrilled to have the movie, not only make its money back, but make such a big profit, because that means that we didn't have to go back to the theater. We didn't have to, be on stage anymore. And so we were definitely thought that now we could be in the movie business. And
that's why the money that we made from Kentucky Fried Movie, our profit participation, which was not enormous, but it was enough that we could write Airplane and take a year or more really to work on writing it and getting it made without having to find other work. There is no Samuel L. Bronkowitz, of course,
maybe not, of course. I don't think people know.
Oh yeah, well,
it was a made-up name.
Samuel Bronkowitz was a made-up name, and we did it because nobody knew. We were all young kids, and we had to form our own company because United Artists Theater Circuit wasn't writing the checks directly for services and equipment, etc. So we thought that Samuel L. Bronkowitz sounded like a legitimate name, and so people would do business with us. And in fact, more than a few times, we would call someone and say, they'd say, well, who's this for? What's the company? And we'd say Samuel L. Bronowitz Productions. And they'd say something like, oh, is he still making pictures? You know, or Samuel, oh, of course,
Yeah.
Samuel L. Bronowitz, well, great, you know. It just sounded legitimate.
Yeah.
And
then in the trailer,
was,
we actually cast a guy as Samuel L. Bronowitz.
yeah, we just, yeah,
Yeah.
Samuel Bronowitz, Sid, I can't remember, Sid Kane.
Sid Kane.
I believe I remember
Yeah.
that. That's the name of the actor.
He's still
But-
alive. He's
but is
110 now.
But yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. They didn't-
it just seems a shame that Leslie is gone and he's
still alive, yeah,
You
Sid
know, is
Kane.
there no God anyway?
But,
Sorry, but it's really cool. But no, that was funny. We had stationery
Yeah.
and cards and everything, and it was and it actually did. I mean, it was fun and funny, but it actually did serve a purpose. Well, we're both working on a bunch of things, some comedies. We just, I don't know if it's open. Has Fair Game opened here yet?
Who's in it?
Sean Penn and Naomi Watts.
Oh, it's on its way, yeah.
Oh, okay. That was, my wife and I produced that.
Is that the sort of Washington?
Yes, yeah, politics. So we just finished that, and you know, I don't have anything. I don't think either of us have anything right now scheduled to.
I have
you
a
know,
couple
about
of
to
scripts
shoot.
that, again, I'm looking for investors for.
Okay, well,
So if anybody, you know,
Yeah.
buying this DVD,
And
you
I've
know,
read them and they're hysterical and they're guaranteed to make a fortune. So
Well, one is actually a PG comedy, a slapstick comedy for that families would love to see. So it's not, you know, the opposite of a Kentucky Fried Movie,
yeah.
R-rated thing. It's a buddy comedy about, you know, it's a Laurel and Hardy combination who they work as busboys at the White House, and they overhear spies talking about a plot to steal the secret plans to the government's new invisible plane. And so both these guys dream of being in the Secret Service. So they, you know, they gradually, probably in the worst way, actually get to be in the Secret Service. So, and the movie's called The Secret Service. Well, it's going to be an ensemble comedy like most of the movies that we've done, and we want to cast two unknowns,
Yeah.
and so we'll make it into a franchise, hopefully.